Welcome, welcome. We're back with another episode of the Gothic Heart. And today's we've got a new twist. We talk a lot about self-acceptance and growth and working with others. And we have yet to have discussed that in terms of art. So today is extremely exciting. We've got Lacey here, an artist from West Virginia and vice president or VP of the Pigment Sanctuary. And they are going to explain all about how those things are actually connected. So excited to be here. And Lacey, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, it's Amity, welcoming you to the Gothic Heart, where we explore how to fully embrace your Gothic and alternative self in love, life, and everything in between. Whether you're navigating the dating scene, in a relationship, or celebrating your individuality solo, this is your spot for tips, inspiration, and my own journey from a courtroom attorney to a hollow wedding host. So grab your favorite drink and let's dive in.
Well, I'm Lacey. I'm Silver Arrow Art. I normally sign that with my on my painting too. And I started using art as like a form of escapism when I was younger, but I've actually transitioned that into finding ways to be vulnerable and find my more authentic self and ground it and integrate it here in this reality. Me and my friend Ashton made the Pigment Sanctuary official back in 2017, 2018, but we have been an art collective spanning the entire East Coast for the last decade or more, painting at music festivals and setting up galleries there.
That is incredible. I have so much I want to ask about your art, but can we just start with the Pigment Sanctuary? Because it seems like it's like a movement.
Yeah. So, for a lot of people who don't know, like, there is another avenue that artists can take outside of the galleries or just teaching, but being able to take that into a more performative aspect at music festivals. And about 2014, 2013, we started noticing that when we collaborate together, we're stronger when we work together than when we are apart trying to compete against each other. So we started just like taking care of each other more and more and building a strong community. And we're just like, why don't we do this all the time at all the festivals? And we kind of curate a gallery space at several different festivals and create like a space of like kind of destimulation at festivals can be like really chaotic and a lot of energy all the time. And so having the art space there and having the creation of art provide the moment of focus and just like bringing the levels back to even.
That is a really good point. I didn't even think of it that way. I just was originally, when you were describing it, thinking of it as a way where, everyone could work together and a lot of, a large amount of people could see the art. But I love that idea of a place that you can ground when you're surrounded by so many people and so much noise and all of that stuff. So do you guys create your art intending for it to have that effect for these things?
So a lot of people bring their own art to the table. We like to encourage as many different types of art as possible. And that way, like, everybody has something that they can connect to. But yeah, a lot of the like more performative aspects, I mean, like people will sit and watch us paint for hours sometimes. And it's really inspiring to see some of those people come back the next year with their own easels and their own like intention to put into it.
That's so cool. So how do people become members, or is it sort of just an open door?
It's a pretty open door. I mean, if you find us painting anywhere, like we paint at paint at free events, we paint at, the music festivals where we have our whole huge setup. We have open applications to be a part of the galleries whenever those come around, and we try to include as many people as possible. But even if people don't get into the gallery, we always extend an open arm of like, come paint with us anyway.
Yeah. And just the underlying basis or mission of the Pigment Sanctuary is something I'm always trying to bring with everything. Like, we're better together. We're not in competition with each other. Even fellow jewelers, I actually collaborate with them all the time. I'm sorry, I didn't mention I have a jeweler. I make custom fine jewelry. But I mean, I've had other jewelers on the show. Like, we're better together. So I love that that's the basic premise under there. And I mean, art, well, just like anything, can be super competitive. So that's great, working together instead of competing against each other. So I love that. So, well, then we had talked a little bit about how Silver Arrow art, or just your art in general, helped you overcome and realize some things. So can you walk me through what that process looks like?
Yeah. So for a large part of my life, I used art as like escapism. I've been keeping a sketchbook since I was in like 4th grade, and it largely stayed something that was very personal to me until I started live painting at music festivals. And I realized that, like, yes, you can paint what you think people are going to want, but like, people aren't going to feel it as much as if you're like ripping open your own soul and bleeding it out onto a canvas. And like, while you don't necessarily want to do that all the time, I found that like not digging deep was also making me like lead to burnout faster than when I was doing the soul searching. And especially when the quarantine hit and we were largely inside, a lot of people had to do a lot of shadow work. Like, there wasn't any hiding from ourselves when there's nothing else to do, you know? And so I did a really, really intense, like, 3-year period of like intense shadow work and really finding the darknesses in my soul and trying to integrate that and trying to use that to be able to help others find that in themselves.
Wow. So yes, I can imagine. Well, a lot of people that come on the show, it's all about, a lot of parts are the quarantine and things that really turned things around. But I could just imagine just the inspiration, you know, having to get it all within and not having as many external influences, that a lot of things would come up. Did your art take a turn, like completely change, or a little bit?
Quite a bit. I was never much of like, you know, like a love lighty hippie artist. There's always been like some kind of darkness to my art underneath of it, because it's like my understanding of darkness that helps me appreciate like beauty and light. And I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought right there.
It happens to us all. It happens. Well, that's okay, because I have lots of questions. So because you can feel the dark, it makes you appreciate the light, right? That's what you were just mentioning, and completely can relate to that. So your art took a turn then for more darkness, more light.
Yes. So yes, that's it. I noticed. So like, I start off a lot of my paintings, especially when I'm doing the soul searching work, I start off with an abstract mess, because then the subconscious influences and whatever's back here can kind of like find its way forward more, rather than me imposing like, oh, I'm gonna add this element here and this element here, and then that'll represent this. Like, once you add that logic to it, then your ego gets in the way. And
Gotcha.
I noticed that like the pattern of these paintings would be the abstract mess, and then like I kind of like, rip open the chest and purge all of the darkness onto it. But then at some point in the painting, there's an integration process where that's spun around. And unlike my artwork outside of that, which was more of the light side of the yin yang with the dark spot, like with the underlying themes of darkness, it was the dark side where it was like, yes, this imposing, like oppressive darkness, but then like that little bit of light is enough to balance it out and realize, oh shit, wait a minute, that's important too.
Yep, I could not agree more. It's almost well, I mean, we're not sure when this is going to air, but when we're talking about this right now, end of July, it's like perfect timing because I'm currently, just at least in my business, I'm taking a turn for more of what we talk about here on the Gothic Heart and my interest, more vintage, a little darker, Victorian, Gothic lace, etc. But I've made a very conscious effort because, I mean, if you look at me or my house, it's all rainbows and sparkles because I also love that stuff. So there is going to be that piece where there's like, hey, but there's a light palette too. And it can still be the lace and it can still be. So what you just said could not like be more applicable to my life right now. That is exactly how I feel too. But what you said sounded really interesting. So it's almost like when you start working, or at least when you're doing this part, you don't even really necessarily have an idea of what your art is going to turn out to be.
I have no idea, and it's really exciting because a lot of it, like at first, will seem like a bunch of really disjointed images and things that don't necessarily work together. And then there will literally be an epiphany moment at some point during the creation of the painting that connects all of the dots together. I'm just like, oh, I get it now.
I love those moments. And you teach people how to use their art in this way?
Yeah, so I am going to have a more comprehensive workshop on it, but I've been test running this meditation that I teach every once in a while. That's like a 2-hour long process where I kind of walk people through it and allow them to center themselves and allow whatever comes up to come up. I want to work on getting more art therapy certification and education to make sure that I can catch people when the deep stuff comes up, because you never know when that's going to happen. And especially in this festival environment where I'm teaching a workshop and people are in varying states of mind. Some people have never seen this level of radical self-expression, and it brings up a lot for them. So I want to be able to cradle that.
That's a good point. And I think it's amazing if you're teaching people to do this, because then in a moment when they don't have access to you or something else, they could create some art and work through it and even help themselves until they can get with someone else.
Yeah.
So that's not something you can always have in traditional ways of trying to work through your issues, or even some non-traditional, because you usually need an external person, but you're teaching them, or us, a way that we can almost do it in the moment, even if nobody's there. So that's really unique. And is it always through, what kind of art?
Yeah, you can do it. There's ways to do it with just a pencil and a piece of paper where you're just kind of mindlessly drawing lines, and then you find the images in that. Or you can do it with anything. You can crumple a piece of paper up. Yeah, you can take a piece of jewelry, take the chains or whatever you want, and lay them out and see what comes up.
Oh, that's so cool. Now I want to try that. Just put a piece of pieces together and see what I see. Although I don't think I'm going to need to actually take lessons from, or a workshop or that meditation thing training from you, so I can actually see it. But your primary method of art is painting?
Yeah, I normally use acrylic paint because they're easier to take out on the field when I'm painting, especially in summer. In winter, I like to get into a lot more oil painting because I'm spending much more hours in my studio, and I can get a lot of luminosity from oil paint that I can't get from acrylic paint.
Well, so or our listeners, or just anyone, will be really inspired or interested in your journey on how you became an artist, because so many, we're getting better about it nowadays, but so many people grow up with the thought that being an artist is not a way to make a living. And luckily there's people like us that are trying to transform that narrative. But let's hear your journey in case somebody can relate to it.
So even when I was in high school, I did not anticipate becoming an artist professionally. It was actually because of the people that told me that I couldn't do it. And I love him, but my dad was one of those people, he's scared, parents always want their kids to be successful, but yeah, those people really drove me to being you know what, I'm gonna show all you, I'm gonna do it.
Yes, that's how I am too.
Yeah, and it was literally because of music festivals and music festival galleries and making the and building the community that I have, that I'm able to do it.
Definitely community. That's something we talk about on here a lot, like finding the people who will support you or who are supporting you or have like minds and interests.
Yeah. And like one thing that's been really beautiful about being with the same people for 10 years is that we can transform each other's like thought patterns and help build each other up in ways that I didn't really realize until I go and hang out with other friend groups, and like just like the subtle communication differences that like we actively build each other up no matter what. Like even if we're messing with each other and heckling each other, and we'll be saying compliment with like, you know, like an angry tone, like, that art is so pretty. Do you understand how cool you are? God. And then walk away all frustrated. But really, like, you know, rather than like the self-deprecating thoughts that a lot of people use to talk about themselves and each other.
And that inner voice. Ugh.
Yeah, and like, yeah, sure, sometimes comedy via self-deprecation is a way to keep us humble, but a lot of the times it's rooted in things that we're actually insecure about. And so when we say something to self-deprecating and immediately one of our friends is just like says the same thing but with a positive spin on it, and they're just like, oh, so actually you mean XYZ, then you're just like, oh, I feel good about myself now.
That's exactly what I try to do with my daughters. Well, my oldest right now. I've said it before on other episodes, but she's got a really mean inner voice, and she's only 9, so I'm trying to help her actually look at the facts and try to turn it around. So I love that you put it that way. So that's cool. And I mean, just keeping something going for 10 years in the same group of people, I mean, that's incredible. And I mean, I just can't even imagine all of it down the East Coast. Well, I know the East Coast states are smaller and they're closer together. Like I used to live in California, and they're just maybe Las Vegas. I don't know. But so how do you guys all work that out? Or it's just you guys meet up at all the music festivals?
The music festivals keep us coming back, and then we started having events outside of the regular festival season to make sure that we're still like getting together and like something outside of like the work environment, because the festival is still work for us. We go and we spend like 3 days setting up a massive gallery with all of the lighting and art and everything. And then we spend all weekend hustling our art and like trying to work on our own art while still having these like really deep experiences with people. And then we tear it all down. And so it's nice to also have things outside of that we can come together for, like workshops or art parties and things like that.
The other part, yes, because I can see the way you just described it. Like music festivals could probably be pretty draining, especially if you're working with people. And I could definitely see that. So, and a lot, like I didn't even think about the lights and everything, but of course, I mean, how else are you going to see it? So
and
how
the unpredictable weather.
Oh, that's another good point. Yes, well, it's getting more unpredictable by the week.
We had one year at a festival, the whole gallery came down because there was a tornado on the mountain with softball-sized hail that was terminated, so it was spiky.
Oh.
I was literally hiding under my table in 1.5 feet of water thinking that like everything was going to be destroyed and I'd be lucky to make it out.
Man, weather, yes.
You never know.
You do never know, because I'm like, well, I'm not a music festival expert, but I'm thinking like a large chunk of them are in the summer seasons, right? Definitely because of weather. But yeah, you can't even count on that anymore. Like we're all having crazy weather. I read something about like recently there was snow, even though it's like 90-degree weather somewhere on the East Coast. I was like, what is happening? Crazy. Well, so where can people then buy your art or see it or view it?
Well, I'm on most social medias. I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram. And then I have my website too, which I try to keep pretty updated. I'm about to add a whole bunch of more things from the last festival that I still have. So that's silverarrowart.com. And then social media is at silverarrowart.
Okay. That's nice and easy. And we'll put all the links below in the show notes too, because I want to make sure that that people can find you. But You also have a podcast. So I didn't want to forget to bring that up because people who are finding like this content or the art therapy that you're sort of launching into and working interesting, I'm sure they'll want to listen. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so me and my friend Shannon Shine started a podcast called We Are Artists, and we have a lot of discussions with ourselves about like the festival experience, yes, but also the art life experience, advice, triumph, and tragedies, and what art has done for us on a very vulnerable level. And then we also interview other artists who get their story as well and help them tell their story better and be vulnerable.
Can you just imagine, like, even like, I don't know, I was going to say 50, but even like 20 years ago, people in business, like you weren't supposed to be vulnerable. You had like this professional shield, right? And nowadays, I mean, I'd much rather connect with the person behind the business and then like their stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's a
I
really beautiful thing. I really feel like, for as many evils as social media has brought, one thing that it has also brought is a radical sense of vulnerability and people learning how to express themselves better.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. And I hope that trend continues. We'll see. Because, the other flip side of that is, oh, well, no one talks to each other anymore. Well, but we do. And we talk to more people and we can find people with our interests and communities, even if they're across the world. So that's actually a big bonus, at least in my mind.
I mean, I think so.
Yeah. All right. See, so I got at least you on my side. So you do mostly paintings and anything. You ever do any other kind of art? Because I'm just like super into your necklace and your hat and underneath and your earrings. So I'm like, is this you, a friend? What is it?
I mean, yeah. So I decorated the hat. This is just a belt that I had and some gifts. I like to decorate all my hats with different relics and doodads that I pick up. And then this earring is a piece of charcoal that I took from an art class where we had a very intentional eclipse ceremony, and this was Piece of the Fire. And this was a vertebrae that one of my friends gave me. And then I made this necklace.
You did make them.
Yeah. I like to dabble in a bunch of different arts and keep my hands busy. They all inform each other. And then these were a bunch of bones that I found at the local river, and I turned them into a necklace. And
awesome. See, jewelry with meaning.
Huh? Yeah.
I said jewelry with meaning. I mean, that's why I want to do custom, so I can put meaning into it. And so all of your pieces are special meanings for you and things that you did. So that's the best part.
Yeah. And then I made this ring a long time ago, and I've been carrying it as like my power piece ever since. It's like my little satellite dish for receiving good energy.
Oh, I love that piece. I had some people on recently that put some like alchemy and grounding into their jewelry pieces and their rings, especially so that they could, touch them and help them ground themselves or pull out from them. So that's really cool. I mean, yours is even more symbolic of that, with it almost with that being like a little bowl shape. So that's really cool. And now, of course, since we talked about these, we're going to need some pictures. So we can show them for our listeners. So I can put some pictures of those in the show notes.
For sure.
Otherwise, they're going to have no idea. So with me being in jewelry, like I can't stop looking at your jewelry, which is awesome. But what about the moons on the hat?
Part of the hat already.
Okay.
I just buy the hats when they're on sale, and I'll get a bunch of them. And I've been really enjoying really decking them out with I have another one with chains all over it and like a little skeleton in the back and a ribbon that comes down, tarot cards around it, and
totally my kind of style. Oh, I love that. Yes. Well, see, because you're turning everything into your own. So your art doesn't just stop in whatever medium you plan on you try to use. So I love that. Art everywhere. And it doesn't stop for me too. I mean, in real life, I mean, it's all real life, but technically I consider myself a sewer, and sewing is my passion. I have 2 sewing studios in my house along with my jewelry studio, but I only like to sew for myself. I don't even like to sew for my kids. I'm like a selfish sewer. So that was never going to be a business avenue. But then you just see, and then, and in jewelry and like always wanting to customize and make things your own, you end up in all these different mediums. Like Art.
Yeah.
Art.
And it's great because, like, art doesn't need to be for other people all the time. Just got to make yourself happy.
Exactly. When I'm not in the sewing room for a while or not in the studio because I've got too much, computer stuff or social media or whatever, the 9 million hats we have to wear as entrepreneurs, I start to get, I need to get in there. I need to just relax and do some actual, yes, the designing is creative, but actual, hands-on work, with the machines or things before I start to feel better.
Man, there's something about the tactileness.
One day we'll get to a place where that's the only part we have to do and someone else can do all the other stuff. But right now in this life, it's part of being an entrepreneur, and I'm getting to learn a lot, learning all those, the social media part and stuff. So, and I know you're not technically just a one-person show because you've got your Pigment Sanctuary, but as far as Silver Arrow Art, you take care of your social media and stuff, so Oh,
yeah. I try to turn it into a game, and I try to have myself, because, I got the ADHD, so I don't get the dopamine after completing a task. I have to, have an external reward, so, if I make my social media post before 11 o'clock at night, then I can play video games for a little bit.
Yes. I do that to myself sometimes. You can sleep in an extra 10 minutes, but you have to do that.
Yeah.
Or I try to do that, but I have 3 little kids that wake me up at the crack of dawn, so sleeping in isn't really a thing. But in the rare chances that it is, I make little deals with myself just like that. So I love it. We covered your podcast, which I think will be great for people to listen to, especially when it's talking about your stories and people who would aspire to either be artists or use art as a medium to help themselves in life and work through things and see your art. We're going to link everything below, and I'm definitely hopefully going to put pictures of your jewelry so that people can see what we were talking about. Is there anything that you wanted to share with our listeners I might have missed?
Oh, man. I think we covered a lot of things, but radical authenticity, learning how to ground yourself in yourself and not grounding yourself where anybody else told you to ground yourself.
Good point. Something else you said earlier that was really resonating with me is how you said the pieces are better, or people resonate with them more when you've got giant pieces of yourself, ripped out your heart in them. And I could not agree more. I mean, that's a big thing. When I first launched this business, I still don't even know, why was I still trying to please the masses? Bridal, everything's pretty or whatever. It's taken me all this time. And even now I haven't fully done my relaunch of where I'm why am I doing that? I really can embrace myself finally. Maybe I couldn't incorporate, maybe I couldn't as an attorney, but now I can. Why am I still holding back? Right? So, and it's so true. The pieces I love the most, or the pieces that get the most reactions on social media or in person, are the ones where I've put that flair in it. Maybe there's a coffin-shaped stone or something like that. Those are the ones that people resonate with. So what you said is exactly right. I have the same experience. So it's so crazy. It's so crazy, that weird, I don't know, at least for me, back pressure where it's still but this person's not going to like that. Well, guess what?
I still absolutely get that voice coming through being hey, maybe you shouldn't have said that. And they'll be but maybe I should have said it. Now I feel like I should have said it even more.
Yep.
So I've learned how to take that flavor of spite where, people tell me that I couldn't be an artist, and I'm learning how to apply that to that voice that's just you're not worthy.
And I'm finally coming more to terms with, I would want to be but I can do that. I can actually make anything. I can do custom. More to but do I want to make that? Is that going to make me, Yeah, I can do that. But so can this and this. Let's focus on what's really unique and special that other people can't do. So you are a living, breathing reminder of that, and especially with what you were saying. And I think that's so important for the listeners as well, as something we always talk about. I mean, I'm in my 40s. It's taken me till now to embrace my actual inspiration and style in a professional setting. And look at you. doing it now. And so hopefully we can help people get there sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to add a little. I feel like that's going to become more and more of a trend. I think we're going to be seeing a trend of people learning how to radically accept themselves in a healthy way.
And I hope we do. Because I accepted myself like internally back in my 20s, but apparently professionally not until 40s. So, but I really hope that's the trend we keep going on. And then that's why we talk about it here, to help that trend continue and to help people realize that, you know, you're not doing anything wrong. You are worthy, all the things. So despite what they may be hearing. So thank you so much, Lacey, for being here. We're going to post all the things that we talked about below and all of the ways to get in touch with you and your podcast and everything for our listeners. And listeners, I know, just like in every episode, there is something that's going to resonate with you or apply to someone you know. So we'd love it if you share the podcast, like, follow, subscribe, any way of media that you can to support us in this journey. We'll just keep this content coming. That's how we keep it going. So thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.